He took it without hesitation, though it was ridiculously overpriced and, given the occasion, maybe a little festive. He'd never driven a sports car before. He liked being close to the road and open to the sky, feeling the velvety sea air wash over him. During his hours in the darkened, lavender-scented apartment, he was aware of the car outside, and the thought of it pleased him. He hadn't found much to be pleased with, least of all the long hours of useless witness to his mother's dying, not being able to reach her, not knowing what to do or say. None of this was as he'd hoped. The two of them recalling old times as the shadows lengthened, reclaiming their partnership, abolishing the wariness that had somehow grown up between them. He tried. He talked brightly of his wife and children, all the while knowing she was beyond curiosity, if she could understand him at all. He did it, he knew, to drown out the hard work of her breathing, to fill his own head with the sound of ordinary talk, and distract himself from his impatience for the end. For her sake, he tried to believe, for her release. He felt he'd been cast in a low part, as when he ransacked the apartment for her jewelry. He had done this after a funeral home director told him that others with access, caregivers, building staff, might help themselves if he didn't get there first. "It happens all the time," the man said sadly. It was a ghoulish business, rifling through every drawer and cupboard, while his mother lay curled on her bed. Now and then she stirred, and he froze like a thief, hand in a coat pocket, under a pile of sweaters, holding his breath. It was all there, everything he remembered anyway, and none of it worth stealing. Maybe his daughter could use this stuff for playing dress-up. And he'd given himself yet another reason for feeling morally dwarfed by the underpaid women who'd looked after his mother and liked her and now simply and helplessly grieved for her. The funeral home was just a few blocks away. This was the fourth one he'd arranged to visit. He was after the most basic plan: cremation, placement of ashes in a generic container, filing of death certificates. His mother wanted cremation and would certainly approve of his comparison shopping. She herself had a flinty incapacity for the pieties of mourning. 2 weeks after her last husband's death, she was on a cruise ship in the Aegean. When her cocker spaniel, Muggsy, dearer to her than any husband, got run over by a truck, she bought a life-size statue to mark his resting place in her backyard. Yet the statue was of an Airedale. She'd picked it up for a song after the guy who'd commissioned it reneged on the deal. Grolier and Sons Colonial Memorial Chapel had a Spanish mission look that immediately put him on alert. Who but the bereaved would pay for the fancy tile roof, the faux bell tower? The prices he'd already been quoted ranged from $1,100 to a ballsy $1,800 for the same minimal service. What kind of nerve did Grolier and Sons have? He was met at the door by a tall woman in a black suit. She had close-cut black hair with a streak of white across one temple, and her lips were painted a deep maroon. She regarded him so fixedly as he introduced himself that he stammered his own name and lost hers altogether. "Come," she said, and he followed her down the hallway in a trail of perfume spiced faintly with sweat. The building was cool and silent, hushed. The woman told him that everyone else was out on duty. They had 2 burials that afternoon, and she'd left one of them early to meet with him. If she seemed, how does one say? Out of sorts. Yes, out of sorts. It was because she'd been caught in traffic and reached the home only a few minutes earlier, late for their appointment. She thought she might have missed him. Most unprofessional. But it seemed he had been late too, no? So they were even Stephen. The woman showed him to a small office and listened while he described his mother's situation and what he had in mind. She kept her eyes straight on him as he spoke. He was again made awkward by the directness of her gaze. "This is the hardest part," she said. "My old papa died last year, and I know this is no picnic. You were close to your mother, yes?" "We were close." "I can tell," she said. He asked her what Grolier and Sons would charge for what he wanted. "So," she said, "down to business." With a few practiced tugs, she pulled off the black gloves she was wearing.